Welcome, my dear students. Today we are going to make a quick revision on the chapter evolution. Okay, now this evolutionary history, evolutionary biology, study of history of life forms on Earth, and to understand this evolution of organisms, we have to study evolution of Earth. We must have an understanding of the context on the background of origin of life. We must also study evolution of Earth and stars, the universe itself. And first of all, this universe, Earth, etc. are formed, and this on the Earth, this life originated. So we must have a clear, thorough knowledge of evolution of Earth, then the evolution of life history. Okay, this story. Evolution of life forms or biodiversity on Earth in the context of evolution of Earth and against the background of evolution of universe. So we must study evolution of to get a grasp, to get some ideas on evolution of biodiversity, evolution of life forms. We must have an idea of evolution of Earth and evolution of universe. Okay. Now, how this universe originated? Universe originated by Big Bang theory. This was proposed by Abel Lemaitre. Lemaitre, about 20 billion years ago, a Big Bang occurred, and a huge, to explain origin of universe, it talks of a singular huge explosion, unimaginable in forms. Then later on, these galaxies were formed. What are galaxies are made up of? Galaxies comprising these stars, clouds, gases, dust, etc. And our galaxy, we are in the galaxy of Milky Way galaxy. Milky Way galaxy, and this, suppose we are supposed to form, Earth is supposed to form about 4.5 billion years ago. So 20 billion years ago, this Big Bang theory, then about 4.5 billion years ago, Earth formation of Earth, then 500 million after millions of years after the formation of life, the formation of Earth, life formed. That is about 4 billion years ago, life, we suppose that life originated. Okay. Now, what are the different theories for the origin of life? There are different theories. First theory is the theory of panspermia. About 4 billion years back, this life originated. About 500 million years after the formation of Earth, or almost 4 billion years after the formation of this life originated. Now, the first theory is life came from outer space. Then something like that, but what we can call as a spores, they came from some other planets, and they are transferred to Earth. And that theory is known as panspermia, or extraterrestrial origin of life. Extraterrestrial origin of life. Extraterrestrial origin of life. That is panspermia. Then this next is this spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation of life, that is the life came out from decaying and rotting matter, mud, straw, etc. That is spontaneous generation of spontaneous origin of life. Origin of life. And this theory, spontaneous generation of life, was later disapproved, totally disapproved by this Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur disapproved spontaneous generation. Disapproved spontaneous generation, and he said that life can originate only from a pre-existing life. So that was the later on, this spontaneous generation was later on disapproved by Louis Pasteur, and Louis Pasteur advocated that life can originate only from a pre-existing life. Okay. Then this the next theory is theory of chemical evolution. Theory of chemical evolution of Parin and Haldane. They proposed chemical evolution. That is, first forms of life would have come from pre-existing non-living organic molecules. It may be RNA or protein. And the formation of life preceded by chemical evolution. So something like this RNA or proteins, they may be the first precursor of life, from which this organic molecule later on, so these pre-existing non-living organic molecules, then some organic molecules form, and the life, from that life originated, preceded by chemical evolution. That is, formation of different organic molecules from inorganic molecules. The primitive atmosphere had high temperature and continuous volcanic storms, continuous volcans or eruption, and so volcanic storms reducing atmosphere containing, and at that time we had a reducing atmosphere containing methane, ammonia, etc., then hydrogen, etc. And so that was the condition of the primitive earth: high temperature, volcanic eruptions and volcanic storms, reducing atmosphere containing methane, ammonia, hydrogen, etc. And later on, in 1953, Stanley Miller actually created such a condition in a laboratory, and he made he simulated the conditions of the primitive earth in a flask, vapor at 800 degrees Celsius, then methane, hydrogen, and ammonia, and water vapor, etc. And after this, a few days experiments, he observed formation of sugars, nitrogen bases, pigments, and fats, etc. Miller obtained amino acids, and similar experiments were carried out by some other scientists, and they got formation of sugar, nitrogen base, pigment, and fats, etc. Then, along with this, some scientists also analyzed the meteorite contained, and similar compounds indicating similar processes are taking place in the outer space. And with this chemical evolution of life was accepted by all. Then, this is the experiment where this Stanley Miller created the primitive atmosphere, high temperature by electrons, 800 degrees Celsius, then methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water and hydrogen, that is reducing atmosphere, and he created spark to develop high temperature, then it is passed through a condenser, etc. And here is boiling water reservoir, etc. And after 10 or a few days, he stopped the experiment and collected from some material from here, and from that material he got this amino acids. And similar experiments were conducted by some other scientists, and some other chemicals was used, and they got these sugars, nitrogen bases, etc. Meteorite was also analyzed. Chemical analysis of meteorite also gave the almost similar type of results, and the end products were similar types. Meteorite ash contains these sugars, amino acids, and these nitrogen bases, chemicalized that, and they concluded, then everybody accepted that life originated by chemical evolution. Okay. Then next is this evolution life forms. This is a religious theory. There is another theory, the fourth one. So first one is panspermia. Second is spontaneous generation, which was disapproved by Louis Pasteur, and this chemical evolution, which was accepted by all. Then there is another theory, this religious theory based on religious ideas. That is, it has three main points. One is that all living organisms, species, and types that we today are created as such. All these living organisms are created as such means there is no evolution and in the past, and there will be no evolution in the future also. The biodiversity will remain as such. And to the diversity, second point, the diversity was always same since creation, will be same in the future also. Third point, Earth is only 4,000 years old. This idea was actually objected by many of the scientists of that period, and actually this was also objected by Charles Darwin. And Charles Darwin made the foundation of a theory of evolution, organic evolution theory, and he got many evidences from his travel in the ship HMS Beagle around the world, and he went to many places and he collected many evidences which proved organic evolution. Then, according to Darwin, there are 10 or 12 points. First one is that existing life forms share similarities to varying degrees, not only among themselves, but also the forms existed millions of years ago. So existing, that is the first point. Existing forms, they have similarity between themselves. At the same time, they have some similarity with these organisms existed millions of years ago. And these organisms, which existed millions of years ago, many such life forms do not exist anymore. That means there has been extinctions, and this has given and new forms has originated. There had been this extinction. At the same time, new forms of life were originated. That means there is a gradual evolution of life forms. That is the fundamental idea of Darwin. And so there's 4 points. This first point is existing forms had varying similarities among themselves, but also those existed millions of years ago. Second point, many such life forms do not exist anymore. Third point, there had been extinctions. Fourth point, there is different new forms of life arose. That is, new forms have evolved. That means fifth point, has been gradual evolution of life forms. That were 5 fundamental points of Darwin. And along with this, some more explanation for this point. There has been built-in variation of characteristics. All organisms have built-in variation. And those characters enable to survive better in natural condition, better in environmental or natural conditions. Such organism would outbreed their numbers, their progeny will increase in number, with that are less endowed. Those organisms which do not have the capacity to survive better in a prevailing environmental condition. So such organisms would outbreed others that are less endowed to survive under such conditions. That is the sixth point. There has been built-in variation. And what is meant by variation? Those characteristics, features, which enable some organisms to live in a prevailing environmental condition than those organisms which are less endowed to survive under such a condition. And those organisms who has the capacity to live better in the natural conditions or surviving environmental condition, their progeny, number of their progeny will be increasing, and those with less ability to survive under this prevailing environmental condition or less, their progeny number will be decreasing. They will be slowly dying. So this is known as fitness. That is seventh point. This is known as fitness of individual or population. And according to Darwin, this fitness is reproductive fitness. That is eighth point, reproductive fitness. And those that better fit in an environment will have more progeny and will have more survival, and hence are selected by nature. This is the ninth point. And better progeny, more number of progeny will be produced with those organisms who have better fit in the environment, and that is known as natural selection. According to Darwin, that is natural selection. And he called it as natural selection, and it is a mechanism, according to Darwin, that is the mechanism of evolution. By the same time, almost by the same time, another evolutionist, Alfred Wallace, worked in Malay archipelago. Actually, Darwin went to these Galapagos Islands and collected many evidences, etc. And at the same time, this Alfred Wallace went to Malay archipelago and came to the similar conclusions almost during the same time. Then, next is this evidences for evolution. First evidence is fossil evidences, and this fossils remains of plants and animals lived in the past. Only hard parts will be remain. So and there are different types of fossils, etc. And This is that is first evidence is from fossils. Another evidence is embryological support of this evolution. This was actually proposed by Ernest Haeckel, and its law is known as biogenetic law. Biogenetic law or recapitulation theory. Recapitulation theory. Recapitulation theory, or and the explanation of this theory is ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. That is the idea. Okay, so this Ernest Haeckel upon observation of certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that are absent in adult. So, but this theory has some lacuna, and this lacuna was actually objected by von Baer. Von Baer really objected to this ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny theory, and he slightly modified this theory. Another evidence is comparative anatomy and morphology, which shows similarities and differences among organisms today and those existed millions of years ago. Such similarities can be interpreted to understand whether we had a common ancestor were shared or not. For example, these whales, bats, cheetah, human, all have mammals have similarity in the pattern of bones of forelimbs. For example, they have pentadactyl limb like this: humerus, radius ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. The same basic construction is seen in whale, bats, cheetah, and human beings. In human beings, it is for holding. In bats, it is modified into wing. Whales, it is for padding through water. And for cheetah, it is modified for running, etc. So same basic structure modified in different directions to use different conditions. Hence, these animals, same structure developed along different directions due to adaptation to different needs. This is known as divergent evolution. From a common ancestor, this basic structure is modified in different forms. So this is known as divergent evolution. Divergent evolution shows homologous structures. Homologous structures. Divergent evolution shows homologous structures and common ancestor. And common ancestor. So, the same structure developed in different directions due to adaptations in different environmental conditions or to suit different living conditions. This is known as divergent evolution, and divergent evolution proves homologous structures and that we had a common ancestor. Opposite to this is the analogous structures. Opposite to this, we have analogous structures. Analogous structures means different structures evolving for the same function and hence have similarity. Different structures, embryologically, anatomically different structures, but they evolve to form similarity due to the same mode of living. For example, wings of birds and insects. Both of them have wings, that is just to live in the air condition, or to fly, that is wings are necessary. But wings of birds are pentadactyl wing with some modifications, whereof wings of insects are extension of body skeleton, body outer region of body covering. So that is the same structure, difference in origin and anatomically different, but modified in a similar way to suit similar environmental conditions. So, other examples of analogous conditions: eyes of octopus and mammals, and flippers of penguins, etc. And another example from botany side is plant side is this sweet potato. It is a root modification. adventitious root modification, whereas potato is a stem modification, that is analogous structures. That means they both are developed to store food materials. So analogous structures means convergent evolution. Analogous structures mean convergent evolution, and they prove analogous. So just opposite to the homologous condition, different structures, anatomically and embryologically different structures, modified for the similarly modified for to suit similar environmental conditions. Now, next evidence is this biochemical evidences. We had many organisms have common this respiratory enzymes, same respiratory enzyme, glycolytic enzymes, and these digestive enzymes almost similar in many organisms, which shows they had a common ancestor. Then another very interesting this evidence is this very interesting observation supporting evolution by natural selection. Natural selection is of peppered moth. Peppered moth, that is peppered moth. And the peppered moth, there are two different varieties of peppered moth. One is known as white variety, and another is the peppered. Peppered means this variety had some black dots on its wings. Peppered variety, white variety and peppered variety. So these moths, this is white variety. And it had some black dots on this. So, and in the body also, it has some black dots. So this is known as peppered variety. Now, before Industrial Revolution, that means before this 1850s, this in Britain, this almost all the surfaces of buildings and plants, trees, etc., were almost white in color, especially the coverings of trees. The bark of trees are almost white or off-white in color due to the presence of some lichens. But after industry, and the color was almost white in color. So then by that time, when we make a count of these two modes, the number of white variety was more than the peppered variety, because this white variety, when it sits on a background of white, it can escape the predator, so its number increased, its progeny number increased, whereas this black or peppered variety was easily noted by the predators, and they were just killed by the predators, so their number decreased. That was the condition before 1850, before Industrial Revolution. Then this, before Industrial Revolution, the number of peppered moth decreased and the number of white variety increased. But after Industrial Revolution, 1850s, after industrial, what happened is the coal was used as for generating energy. So there were a lot of black soot and dust. All these deposited on the tree trunks, and the bark of trees turned brown or black in color. And the lichens, which were covering the tree trunks before 1850, was just disappeared, and due to this pollution, and lichens are taken as the pollution indicators. Then the number, when they make a count of this number, the number of black peppered moth increased and the number of white variety decreased, because this on the black or brown atmosphere, brown coverings, this peppered moth will not be easily recognized by the predators, whereas white variety is easily recognized by the predators, and they were caught and eaten, whereas these escaped the predators, so their number increased. So the camouflage saved these two varieties in two different conditions. One, before 1850, the white variety increased, then their number decreased, but after 1850, white variety decreased and the number of peppered variety, variety with pepper like dots on the wings and body, their number increased due to camouflage. Okay, so that is another example which shows natural selection. Then these are the two varieties. Peppered here, peppered variety is easily, white variety is easily noted. Here, white variety is easily noted. Then this forms a camouflage like this. Okay, here this black variety is easily noted, peppered variety is easily noted, where this forms a sort of camouflage. Then next is this another is anthropogenic effect, and the man-made effect. How this man is creating, actually influencing the formation of new varieties, new species, etc. Excess use of herbicides, pesticides has resulted in resistant varieties in a lesser time scale. For example, if some pesticides or herbicides are spread or sprayed on these fields, rice fields, etc., then this sometimes some of these insects or pests may become resistant. That is a new variety, and we have to use another type of pesticides or insecticides. So newer and newer varieties or resistant varieties are formed within a short time. The same, when we take a lot of antibiotics, drugs, antibiotics, we are also actually producing some resistant bacteria. That is also within a short time. So these are examples of anthropogenic action, man-made evolutionary changes. Next is how man is influencing and this evolution. Next is adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation, when Darwin went to Galapagos Islands, there he observed an amazing diversity of creatures. Particular interest was small black birds known as Darwin's finches. Darwin finches. Actually, these Darwin finches, original Darwin finches were this yes, original finches varieties were this what is called seed eaters. Original finches were seed eaters. Later on, when these these birds, Darwin finches, reached Galapagos Islands, originally seed eating, and many new types arose. Some are becoming insectivorous, some are vegetarian finches like that. So their beaks are changed. So originally eating many forms which altered beaks. Altered beaks, their food habit has changed, enabling them to become insectivorous or vegetarian finches, what sort of food is available in that particular island. So this process, now the definition of adaptive radiation, this process evolution of different species in a given geographical area, starting from a common point and literally radiating to other areas of geography and habits, is called adaptive radiation. So from a common point, these different new varieties are formed, new types are formed to live in a particular environmental conditions. Another example of this, best example is Australian marsupials. Australian marsupials, they were actually this Australian marsupials were these mammals. Actually mammals, there are three classes of mammals. One is egg-laying, second is placental, and the third is this pouched mammals. All these three, even though they belong to mammals group, all these three separated as different classes. They have no relationship, and actually even though they are mammal with some common features, some common features in basics, they are actually totally different organisms. They look like and developed in totally different lines of evolution. And these Australian marsupials, that is pouched mammals, they show this that is called adaptive radiation. So this is the pouched mammals with the adaptive radiation from a common point, from a marsupial ancestor, from a common point, different varieties, 9 or 10 varieties of this. All these are pouched mammals. Typical example is kangaroo, and all these are different types of this pouched mammals. So from a common point, they are radiating different directions. That is adaptive radiation. Another adaptive radiation, that is another example of adaptive radiation. Now, when two adaptive radiations takes place in two different or types of organisms or in two geographical locations, you see this is placental mammal and this is Australian marsupial. Both of them belong to mammals but look like different classes. But this, due to the same habitat or living conditions or food habit, they look like almost similar. So that is known as convergent evolution. So these mammals, placental mammals in Australia exhibit adaptive radiation. Placental mammals also exhibit adaptive radiation such as Australian marsupials, and they look similar to corresponding marsupials. And this is known as convergent evolution. This is known as convergent evolution. And what are the two key concepts of this Darwinian natural selection? Two key concepts of Darwinian evolution is branching descent and natural selection are the two key concepts of this Darwinian theory of evolution. This branching descent and natural selection. And another theory of evolution is use and disuse developed by the French naturalist Lamarck. And the typical example is that of giraffe. To feed leaves from tall plants, their neck just elongated like that. That is the theory of use and disuse of Lamarck. Now the question is whether evolution is a process or an end result of a process. That is a big question, where this evolution is a process or the result of a process. Is it a natural course or the end result of a process? The world we see, inanimate and animate, is only success stories of evolution. When we describe story of this world, story of this world, we describe evolution as a process. Story of this world means the universe originated, earth originated, and life forms originated. So just like as the evolution and origin and evolution of earth, life forms also originated and evolved. So it is a process. On the other hand, when we describe story of life, only the story how this life originated and evolved, we treat evolution as a process, end process. And what is that end process? It is natural selection. And we still cannot regard evolution whether it is a process or an end result of a process. Now, Darwin was highly influenced by some of the scientists like Thomas Malthus. He is actually an economist, and some of his economic theories were actually converted by Darwin into his evolutionary theory. Thomas Malthus influenced Darwin. Okay. And Thomas Malthus said natural selection is based on certain observations. And for example, natural resources are limited. That is the first statement of this Thomas Malthus. Natural resources are limited. Populations are stable in sight except seasonal fluctuation. Members of a population vary in characteristics. Each member is different, variation. That is Darwin's idea also. So, these members of the population vary in features. In fact, no two individuals are alike. And most of the variations are inherited. According to this Darwin's theory, we already saw that fitness, etc. So, variations are inherited. Now, when the population size increases exponentially, there will be competition. For what is the nature of competition? When the natural resources are limited, population size is increasing exponentially. So to get that natural resources, there will be naturally competition. And only some will be survived at the cost of others. Most of these organisms will die, and a few will survive will be able to get these natural resources. So when competition arises, that means when the population size increases exponentially, there will be some competition for these natural resources which are limited, and that due to that natural competition, only some few will survive and others will die. So this is Darwin, according to Darwin, this is the fittest will survive and others will die. The novelty and brilliant insight of Darwin was that he converted actually these ideas of Thomas Malthus into evolutionary theories, variations which are heritable make resource utilization better. That means those organisms which have some variations will be suitable to live in that particular environmental condition. They will be adapted to the habitat better, and they will have more progeny. Hence, over a period of time, many survivors will live more progeny, and there would be a change in population character, new characteristic or new organisms or new varieties will be formed. Now, regarding this mechanism of evolution, according to Darwin, this evolutionary theory was gradual, while De Vries mutation caused speciation. That is through two different ideas. Darwin's idea of evolution was gradual changes, while De Vries' idea was this: it is caused to mutation, sudden changes, that is saltation, single step large mutations. Okay, so these are the two ideas to extreme. One is, according to Darwin, it is very gradual and slow process, whereas according to De Vries, it is due to sudden changes or mutations, which he called single step large mutation, that he called as saltation. Okay. Then next is Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. This in a given population, one can find out the frequency of occurrence of a alleles or gene. And the frequency of these allelic frequency or genotypic frequencies will remain through generation after generation. And this, using some algebraic equations, we can prove it. So the frequency of allelic frequency or genotypic frequencies will remain constant generation after generation unless there are 5 conditions. Mutation does not take place. That is given in separate part of this explanation. So allelic frequency or genotypic frequencies will remain constant generation after generation unless migration, mutation, natural selection, migration or etc. takes place. So it is gene recombination, etc. takes place. So, and this is proved by using some algebraic equation, and that equation is, it is a binomial expansion actually, and binomial expansion, as we know, it is a plus b whole square instead of a. This is for dominant allele. This stands for recessive allele. So to make it more universal, dominant allele is given as small p and recessive allele as small q. And this p plus q whole square is the genotypic frequency that gives p square plus 2pq plus q square is equal to 1. The total allelic frequency or genotypic frequencies will remain constant. That is, constant is 1. So suppose the allelic frequency of, suppose in the beginning there were 10 and q. 10 and q was only 3. Suppose after a few years, 100 years, when we take a particular character, previously it was 10 and 3. So now after 100 or 200 years, suppose P is changed to 7 and, Here it is 7 and 3. Suppose the P is changed to 5, and that means the Q increased to 5. That means some changes is taking place, some changes in frequencies. These changes in allele frequencies say that some kind of evolution is taking place. The frequency of dominant allele decrease and the frequency of recessive allele increase. That means some kind of evolution is taking place. Now, this Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. There are 5 factors affecting Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Number 1, there should not be any gene migration or gene flow. There should not be genetic drift. There should not be mutation, genetic recombination or natural selection. All these things should not take. Then only the allele frequency or genotypic frequency will remain constant. Now there is another term known as what is meant by genetic drift. Suppose this allele frequency changes due to by some chance. We do not know the actual reason. After some time, the allele frequency is actually changing. That means by a chance. When the allele frequency change occurs by a chance, it is called genetic drift. And suppose there is another term known as founder effect. Founder effect means suppose there are two populations. This is population and a small, the frequency was almost equal. Suppose some individuals with only this type of genotype, they migrate to the distant place, there is no coming back and there is no interbreeding, etc. After a few years, this will develop a new population with this permutation combination of these alleles only, and that will be totally different from the original population. And after a few years, they will develop some 100 years or thousands of years, they will develop into a new species. This is the organisms which migrate to a new place is known as founder, and the effect is known as founder effect. Okay. Now, another is this brief account of evolution. A brief account of evolution. This 2000 million years ago, some first cellular forms of life appeared. And some of these mechanism, how from non-cellular, the cellular forms, a macromolecule could develop that, and a membranous envelope, that means cellular organism develop, we do not know. And some of these organisms had the ability to release carbon dioxide. A similar condition like maybe a type of primitive photosynthesis, something like that, similar to reaction of photosynthesis. And they were actually capturing sun pigments were there, capturing sunlight, and they were doing something like a photosynthesis, etc. Then later on, about 500 million years ago, invertebrates and jawless fish around 350 million years ago, and there's seaweeds and a few plants by 320 million years ago. And when these animals migrated to land, plants had already invaded the land, and when these animals reached the land from water, then these plants were actually there. And from fishes, these amphibians. From fishes, the course of evolution is like this. From fishes, amphibians evolved. Amphibians had this, but only a few millions amphibians was there, because most of the amphibians just became extinct, and now we have only a few species of amphibians, because the amphibians had this egg. They lay eggs, but their eggs did not have any calcium shell, so they have only membrane, so most of the eggs broken, and so their number decreased very much. When the amphibian population decreased, from amphibians, reptiles evolved, and for the next 200 million years, reptiles was actually ruling the dominant organism on the earth, reptiles. And their heads had a calcium shell, etc. And this during the time of reptiles, these huge lycopods were there, huge tree lycopods there were. huge lycopods, huge pteridophytes were there, which are all converted into what is called these coal deposits today, coal deposits. And some of the reptiles went back to sea and developed into fish like reptiles like ichthyosaurus, etc. And on land, we have biggest reptile, that is Tyrannosaurus rex, dinosaur. But somehow we do not know what are the reasons. By about 65 million years ago, complete dinosaur population just disappeared from Earth. When this dinosaur population, the reptile population just diminished, then these mammals began to appear. So, and first mammals were shrews, and mammals had some kind of modification. They were viviparous, giving birth to young ones, so the young ones are protected. Second, they protected unborn young inside the mother's body. Second, they are more intelligent and sensing and avoiding danger. So this their number slowly increased. This number of mammals slowly increased, and so nowadays this later on the mammals became dominant organisms on the surface of Earth. And there is something about this continental drift. What is meant by continental drift? That was actually developed by Alfred Wegener. According to him, there were some, this is North America, this is South America, this is Africa, African continent, and this is Antarctica continent, and here we have this Australian continent. How this Australian continent. How these pouched mammals survived? These pouched mammals were present previously millions of years ago. They were usually present in the South America. When these two, due to continental drift, when these two continents meet together, collided, then some of the animals from this North America invaded South America, and most of these marsupials were just predated by these strong or what is called these carnivorous animals from North America. Then, but these what is called these marsupials, they migrated to Antarctica region and later on to Australian region. And by this time, when the predators were slowly migrating towards Antarctica and Australia, this Antarctica drifted away to polar regions and Australia drifted away to some other parts. So that these marsupials just escaped the predators, and that is how the marsupials are still present in Australia due to the absence of any of these predators. Okay. Now coming to the evolution of man, Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus 15 million years ago, and this Rama had this man-like. Rama was more man-like, whereas Dryopithecus was more ape-like. Then this next is from Tanzania. Some of the bones collected about 3 to 4 million years ago. There's some man-like primates were there, and the group of bones were collected from East Africa, these Australopithecines, and they hunted with the stone weapons, etc. And these creatures were called first human-like being called Homo, and it is called Homo habilis. And the brain capacity of Homo habilis is 650 to 800 cc. Then next evolution of this what is called Java man, the fossil recovered from Java in 1891, and they are known as Homo erectus 1.5 million years ago, and their brain size is 900 cc. Homo erectus, their probably 8 mate, etc. Then comes this Neanderthal man with a brain size 1400 cc and lived in Near East and Asia, etc. And from 1 lakh to 40,000 years back, this Neanderthal man. And they used to protect their body and buried their dead, etc. Then this Homo sapiens evolved in Africa and moved to different continents and developed into different races, Caucasian race, Indian race, like that, different races. And about 75 to 10,000 years ago, modern Homo sapiens evolved. And by about then, this cave art, we can see some of the cave arts in 1800 years ago, and some prehistoric cave arts or some prehistoric man of Wim Becta and Raisan district in Madhya Pradesh, etc. Then by this 10,000 years ago, our ancestors began to settle and agriculture started. Then slowly, the culture developed, civilization and culture developed. Okay. Now coming to this, some of the figures here. This adult modern, the skull of adult modern human being and baby chimpanzee, they are looking almost similar than the adult individuals of chimpanzee and man. So this is adult man and baby chimpanzee skull. Then another figure you have to bear in mind is, these are some of these reptiles. Some of these reptiles, all these reptiles, reptiles or sauropsids, synapsids, Theodonts, Plecosaurs, Therapsids, Dinosaurs, all these became extinct in different eras. Then nowadays we have only this type of reptiles, ruminants. Then this is the evolution of plant. So chlorophyte ancestors, from chlorophyte, this is the eras and this is periods, etc. And we have chlorophyte ancestors and in tertiary, quaternary bryophytes, etc. Tracheophyta, then the rhinia and the xylophyton plants, etc. And these are progymnosperms and seed plants. It divided into two divisions in Permian period, and one group developed into cycas-like plants and another developed into angiosperms-like plants. And this breadth, the breadth you see, the angiosperms have maximum breadth. That means their diversity is maximum. Then another figure you have to remember in mind is, these are different kinds of selection. This is known as what is called, this is different three types of selections. And the first one is known as this, this is the common feature where when this, what is called, these average individuals are selected. Average individuals are selected. Average individuals, we get the peak like this, but this is known as what is directional selection. When this when two extremes, if we draw a graph like this is where average individuals are being selected. This is one extreme, this is another extreme. So when changes in environmental condition takes place, sometimes this extreme individuals of this extreme, their number may go up, or sometimes this due to some environmental changes, this extreme the number of people in these individuals of this extreme may increase. This is known as directional selection. And the third one is this known as this disruptional selection. Disruptional selection, where two extremes are selected, whereas the average individuals are not selected. So that is another figure that you have to bear in mind. And next figure. So this is convergent evolution. This is these two are adaptive radiation and peppered mouth, etc. This is homologous structures, etc. Then this is another figure you have to bear in mind. So here we have this one line is with these are evolution of this what is called dinosaurs, the Brachiosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, etc. And in the center we have another line known as Archaeopteryx, crocodiles, Pteranodon, etc. Pteranodon are small what is called small dinosaurs which can fly, and flying lizards. And this Archaeopteryx, that is, you bear in mind Archaeopteryx, this is the connecting link between reptiles and birds. These have many features. Archaeopteryx has many features of birds and at the same time many features of the what is called reptiles. Okay, so these are the figures that you have to bear in mind also. Okay, that is a quick revision based on this for this the evolution. So it is a big chapter. Anyway, you have to study it. Many points are there. You have to study it very carefully. Okay. Then you also refer to the figures. All these figures also you must study well. Okay. Thank you.